they don't have to conform to what we did here, but they have to at least look at it and understand that it's part of the process
All understanding intent throughout the entire process.
from the beginning to the end.
I think that's a very important part of the whole creative process.
Yeah.
We mentioned the hardware involved back on Only the Brave. Can we talk a little bit about like how that has evolved and changed over the course of Dolomite and Devotion, and now with Song Sung Blue? I understand you spent a fair amount of time in New York, but you were also in the early days. You were still in Santa Monica.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. And as I said, in 2000, I was always searching for the ability to basically do what I now do. Pretty much everything I cut, I do the editor's cut here. And then oftentimes I will move to a location where I can sit with the director and the rest of the crew. A lot of the times with Craig Brewer, he sits in that chair and there's a monitor over here. And we do on Hustle and on Footloose and on Black Snake Moan, first day of dailies to locking picture were all done in this room.
Wow.
And it's a process that we really like. But to do that remote workflow, a lot of, the media would get pushed off to a drive sitting over there, and script pages come in, and it all works great. But it was that collaboration regarding the project. Being that, let's just say there's an assistant across the hall, I can say, hey, can I have reel 3? And the lock on reel 3 turns off. Well, now using software such as LucidLink, in the case of Song Sung Blue, I was sitting here cutting, and my assistant Al was in New York, in New Jersey at his house. And I'm cutting away and new dailies are popping up. And then I would see that he has reel 3 and I would need to work on something. And I'd go, hey, can you release reel 3? And the lock would turn off. And it fell into the situation of there's no difference between he's across the hall or he's across the country. There was no difference. And it worked fantastically.
And it just continues to, I think, accelerate since everything that happened during COVID with shutdowns. I remember seeing certain films that were just about completed shooting and were trying to get post-production ironed out. And that idea of remote collaboration has just become so much of a part of what we're seeing across the industry.
Yeah, it gives you the flexibility to have that as one of your tools. And if you all sit in an office and you're all together, that's fine too. But if you feel like you want to edit on the weekend and you want to be at home, why shouldn't you be able to do that with the understanding that there is a very intense security level, that the studios want you to make sure that the media is protected. And that's why some of these newer systems, you don't even possess the dailies here, or you possess very little of it. You possess just what you're using, and then it transfers and it does it all in the background, and it's great.
Awesome. Going back to audio and the nature of Song Sung Blue in particular, I know that because this movie is so heavy on performance, I mean, that's a big part of what the film is talking about, is the actual performances of the songs and things. You want to talk a little bit about like what the workflow was like setting this up? How many cameras were you dealing with? Any other issues?
Well, yeah, it's not complications being negative. There were just some complications dealing with music and dealing with playback of the song, and they're playing to sync is something that whoever out there is going into this world of doing that, you need to schedule a certain amount of testing and making sure that playback on wherever you're shooting it and the time code is getting transferred to the tracks, that you have that time code coming back to you. And if you don't get that world really buffed out, it will be a thorn in your side for the entire production. What it basically means is, as you have a track and you're cutting, but you want to be able to switch to different performances, but you don't want to have to sync it up each time. You want to be able to quickly, because you have time code right there in one of your windows. Um, in most of the songs, most of all of the drama, we were running 2 cameras, and then the songs would be 3, maybe 4 cameras. It's just if you get it right in the beginning, then your life becomes rather smooth. There's a interesting problem that if you edit the entire song and you have this one track with its continuous time code, that's fine and that works great. But now you get into a world where you have a 3.5-minute song, but you want to start shortening that song. So you need to have a system by which that if you're making a music edit right here, all of your dailies, that one continual time code doesn't work anymore. So it's just something that you need to keep in mind, because if you don't do this right, it's very complicated, or can be very complicated.
Absolutely. It's more than just the storytelling. It's the ability to manage that like crazy complexity with number of assets and things and still be able to tell the story very effectively. I think is part of what you're saying here. What, if anything, I know that you've worked on Avid, you've worked on Final Cut, you've worked in Premiere. And you've worked on a number of different genres, everything ranging from drama to comedy. What's horror as well? I mean, no matter how big the project or how the tools evolve, what's something that just seems to never change? What's the thing that draws you back in again and again that you love?
Well, any of these systems need to be able to, at a certain point when you become comfortable with them, that the system just drops away. And it isn't some keyboard that's sitting in front of you and you're dealing with a computer. You are more connected this way to the screen than you are to these devices here. And it doesn't matter what system you're on. You've got to get to that place where you're not, these become invisible. And with that is when you can get to that lower layer of emotion and drama and pace and rhythm that makes it so that you can accelerate the pace or slow it down. You're constantly doing this. But if you're inhibited by your editing system, then that's a problem.
Absolutely. With those words, Billy, I want to thank you so much for your time, and just thanks for joining us here today.
Thank you, Carl. Great to see you.
Awesome. We are going to be diving deeper into some of the workflow questions here. And I just love getting an opportunity to talk to Billy. Since I showed up in Los Angeles after living overseas, I had the opportunity to basically sort of live on his couch during the early days while he was getting up to speed on Premiere on Only the Brave. And it's been fantastic seeing the evolution of the tools and everything that Billy's brought to that. The one thing I wanted to talk about, some of the films that we mentioned. Only the Brave was the Joe Kosinski film about forest firefighters and a group called the Granite Mountain Hotshots. Fantastic film. That was in the very early days of that collaboration. It introduced during that time period, we introduced the idea of having multiple projects open simultaneously in Premiere and the locks that Billy was mentioning. He continued to use Premiere on a Netflix project called Dolomite Is My Name, and also a film called Devotion, where that was continuing to evolve. Now, we actually saw the very first film use something called Adobe Premiere Productions, something built into the software I'll showcase in just a second, on a film called Everything Everywhere All at Once. And since then, we've just seen an explosion of award-winning films, from Honora to Train Dreams, Song Sung Blue, Marty Supreme, all Oscar-nominated films. We've seen television shows like The Bear in Atlanta using Premiere Productions because it allows for a collaborative team to work together and have an instant picture of who is working on what at any point in the process. Now, we've also seen a huge use of this in documentary filmmaking, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. Just a couple of quick stats about Everything Everywhere. This used a range of different formats and resolutions. It was shot on Alexa cameras. And we saw the work being done by Paul Rogers, ACE, that of course led to a Best Film Editing credit for Paul. if you want to get a quick glimpse of what the timeline looked like, Paul described it as organized chaos working on that project. They like to try just about everything, including stretching sound effects out 2,000%, just to get something unique. A lot of use of time ramping and a lot of different features being used inside of Premiere. Now, with documentary films, this year in particular, we saw so many Oscar-nominated films. The first documentary to win for Best Documentary Film for an Oscar was My Octopus Teacher, and then there was a huge slate of films nominated this year. Now, I'm going to go ahead and transition over to my computer here because I want to take a moment to talk about just a couple of features inside of Adobe Premiere. We've talked a lot about something called Premiere Productions, and I wanted to take a moment to showcase this because if you're working on something relatively small form for social media or something like that, a single Premiere project is perfectly fine for doing that. But when we start to talk about these feature films, the sheer volume of media, I've worked with people that are working on, a 2-hour documentary film, and they literally have thousands and thousands of hours of archival footage that they're trying to catalog and organize. And that's where something called Premiere Productions really kicks in. I have a video series, if you check my YouTube channel out, that talks all about how Productions works. So if any of you have teams of people that are working on anything long form, the basic idea of this is we use a bunch of Premiere projects as a smaller part of a greater whole. And so what this means is when I come in to edit, I can open up the production and open up a project that literally just contains the edit that I'm working on. And the best thing about this is people can collaborate using production. So you can see here, there's a name column here. I have 2 projects currently open. I get a little tiny green pencil when I do that. I can see at a glance who has everything else open. So a lead editor can communicate effectively with an assistant or multiple assistant editors. I think Terminator Dark Fate had something like 7 assistants working on that film simultaneously. You can have a huge team of people working on shows for YouTube. The Mr. Beast crowd uses Premiere for both the Beast Game show on Amazon as well as their YouTube content. And in many cases for Beast Games, the assistant editors alone can number in the 40 to 50 people range, all working inside of one production. So the idea with Productions is it really helps you scale, and it allows for quick and easy organization of footage so that if I'm editing away in a sequence and I need to find a clip, because Productions all work as part of a greater whole, I can just simply click on a clip and say, hey, reveal where this clip lives, and it will open up a separate project for me and let me know that this is the clip in question that I happen to be working with. Now I'm going to switch over to another thing, and this is something that for anybody who does any work with like interview footage, or you've got archival footage of maybe old newscasts that you're working with, anything where you have a lot of people talking, Premiere actually has a dedicated workspace built into it called text-based editing. And with text-based editing, I can very, very quickly jump in and start to use Premiere's built-in transcription functionality in 2 kind of modes. This makes it very, very easy to review interview footage or to review archival footage. And if I want to find a segment and add it to my edit, I can literally just highlight it and hit a button, and I'm basically cutting video with a text document. Now, when I switch over to the timeline, you'll notice that the transcript actually changes. And this transcript is actively looking at all the clips currently in my edit. So this means if I need to change the location of something, I can simply highlight it here. And just like in a Word document or a text document, I can hit cut. I can go to a different location in the sequence by clicking on a word and hitting paste, and I can bring that over into that other part of the sequence. So this applies to just about anybody who is looking for kind of a text-centric experience. And the beauty of this is this text panel, the transcript can actually just live in the background. An editor can work normally. And when it's valuable, they can bring this panel up, the text panel in Premiere. They can switch over to this text-based editing workspace to get that text more front and center. And they can use it on an as-needed basis, put it away when they're not using it. So we just find that fantastic. Documentary filmmakers obviously love this, but I just want to stress this is something that it's not limited to filmmakers. Any editorial team that deals with any type of interviews, any type of word centric, where it's all about finding the right quotes and the right words, can take advantage of text-based editing in Premiere. Now, I'm getting ready to wrap up here. I wanted to showcase one other thing dealing with collaboration. And I'm just going to mention this really quick. There is a brand new panel in Premiere Pro working with Frame.io version 4. And this is a fantastic tool that expands and elaborates on that collaboration. But I want to turn things over to Sean McDaniel. Sean is an evangelist for Adobe, and he comes from the Frame.io background. I know he's got a lot to show us. Sean, you want to go ahead and jump in?
How are you? Good to see you. Always a fan of your demos, and thank you for handing it off. I'd love to talk about Frame.
Awesome.
Well, hello, everyone. Again, my name is Sean. I'm a video evangelist here at Adobe, and I started at Frame.io a long time ago, so I have got a really, really great background in Frame.io knowledge. So please throw those questions into the chat, because we definitely want to help out with anything that you need. But Frame.io at its core, if you're not familiar, Frame.io is your single source of truth for all of your creative media. It's a place to put everything that you need for your projects into one space, so that everyone can access that anywhere around the world. Because right now, and what Carl and Billy were talking about, is that remote work is kind of the norm. A lot of people are working at home, and you need to have your media available, and Frame.io is a king in being able to do that. And again, I want to talk a little bit about what's going on in Premiere with the panel. There's a new panel that came out for V4, which is our newest version of Frame.io. And what's really nice is that it's built directly into Premiere, because again, what Billy was saying is that you can have all the gadgets and things that you need, but really what you're focusing on is the screen and the work that your editors need to get done with. And again, and you don't want to take them out of that context, because you want to stay in that creative zone. So that's why the panel is so important to have it directly inside of the application, so that they don't need to go to a web browser, or they don't need to go to another space in order to do all this work. So I have the panel open over here on the right, and I can see a bunch of different projects, and we're working on this sequence here. So I'm going to open up the project right here inside of V4 within the panel. My editor is going to be able to have access, or myself as an editor is going to have access to all of the files that are within this project. And I'm just going to show you something kind of cool here. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of scrub on this sequence. This is kind of a ready edit for me that I want to put out. It's a little short film that our team put together. And I want to see and add some notes in here to add context for any creative directors or producers or anyone that needs to actually take a look at this content. So I'm just going to select some in and out points. So I'm going to save us a little time with exporting, because I want to show you the process more than anything. So I'm going to add a comment in here. I'm just going to hit the M marker button, and I'm going to go ahead and just put, do you like this font? I'm going to put a little question mark there. I don't need to add any other context. I'm just going to hit OK. I've selected an in and out point. What's really nice is all I need to do is just go right back into my panel. I'm going to choose where I want that file to upload to. I have a little exports folder here. I'm going to choose export. I've got some, preset kind of settings that I can kind of output this to. And I'm going to go ahead and just hit export. And that's just going to take its process. I'm going to let it do its thing, but I'm going to jump over to the web browser, because it's a whole different experience inside of the web app itself. So what's really nice is that Frame.io is built to work with kind of your multiple teams, your multiple organizations within your company. And what's really nice is we have a feature called Workspaces. And Workspaces allows you to have, and I only have 3 here. I can add as many as I'd like, but I've got a different workspace and a different little bucket of projects that each one of my teams can manage. And I've got security permissions. So I can, myself as an admin, I can remove or add people and give people certain permissions so they have access to certain things that you can do within each workspace. So maybe you don't want certain teams seeing what other teams are doing. You can silo those as needed. So I've got a couple different buckets here of workspaces with all my different projects. But I'm going to jump into my demo workspace and we'll go into that project we were working with before. Now, this is a very, very similar kind of experience you would have inside of your computer. Again, the learning curve is not steep at all. So it's easy to just come in, go through your folder tree, kind of twirl down, look for any subfolders that are in here. And then on the right is where all of your assets will appear. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and flatten these folders because I want to see all of the assets that are inside of my project. Now, I can always turn that on or off so my folders are still there, but now I can just kind of have a holistic view at everything inside a frame. And again, I can easily just kind of click in here. I can open up my panels so I can quickly view my media, any comments that were made on those. And I can kind of customize this workspace to view it in any way that I'd like. So I'm going to just go back into those folders here. And I want to navigate to that file that I just exported. And boom, there it is. It's already ready for me to view. If I double click on that, it'll actually take me into the viewer page where I actually can see just the asset that I'm looking at and my comments over here on the right. And my comment that I made right inside of my sequence appears as a comment directly inside of Frame.io. So I'm able to see where this is at. I can click on it. It takes my comment to where that or the playhead to where that comment was made, and I'm off to the races. Now I can add some more comments in here, and whoever has access to these assets are able to leave comments in here. So I'm going to go in and go, title looks great. Maybe change the color. Why not? We like yellow. What's nice too is I can add attachments. So maybe there's an image maybe you're doing a comp on a billboard on a building, and maybe it's the wrong image. So instead of trying to go, hey, well, here's a link to it somewhere else, you can just attach that file right in here, and it takes me right inside of my Finder. I can also add some emojis. I can also add some annotations too. This is a really great part of Frame.io is I can go on here and I can draw right on the screen. I can go ahead and choose different tools. Maybe I want to get really passive aggressive and use the big arrow tool. But what's really nice is that I can just send that off. And now it's nice and organized, because the hardest thing about creative work is controlling and understanding what people mean by their different context of the notes that they're giving, and specifically what point that's at. So we've got tools that help refine that even more. So we've got the ability to add in and out points. You can get a little bit more precise. Maybe there's a section of that interview you want to move to another spot. We want to give you the tools to make it easier for you to relay this information back to your creative team so that you can get your work done. So that's just a little bit on commenting, but what's really nice is that Frame.io v4 is a really great way to organize all of your assets. So if I were to go in here, I'm going to go ahead and just unflatten the folders because I want to show you how you're able to add metadata tags. So on the top here, we have fields, and we could turn on and off different fields that we want to see or don't see. Maybe you want to know what certain video codecs are there. Maybe I want to know if somebody's put some rating icons on there. Maybe, I don't know. Let's find something fun here. Maybe there's not one that's in here that I like. Well, what's nice is I can create my own fields. So if you have a certain workflow that you like to use or a certain system that you have, this is another great way to be able to customize your process and your workflow. And what's really cool is that these metadata tags are great, so you can kind of filter through and sort what you want to look at. But collections is a really great way to enable the power of those metadata tags and put them in these individual dynamically updated buckets. So if I click on, let's say, videos, this is one that I've created. I can base things just on what images or what assets in here are just for videos. Same with images. But also I can jump down to anything that needs review. Actually, I had one in here that had a section I was looking for. I'm so sorry. Maybe it was in my other project here. Here we go. So let's say I have a collection here and I want to organize my files in a different way. Maybe I want to have different kind of grouping. So maybe I want audio groupings and images. I could scroll down into videos and vectors, or maybe things that needs approval. So I want to make sure that I've got the right tags that'll have items that need revision. Maybe they're awaiting approval. So this is another way for me to just have a quick look at things. And it's easy for me to create a collection. I could just hit the plus icon. I've got all of these different tools where I can change what I'm viewing and seeing, and they're all brandable as well. So if you have certain creative stakeholders and they have access to the account, this is a great way for them to kind of just see what they only need to see in a quick and easy and organized fashion. I'm going to jump back into Tears in the Rain because the last part I want to show you is to be able to create a shared link. And this is where you can actually send out links to people that maybe aren't on your account. So I can name these anything I'd like. So let's do Tears in the Rain cut. And I can change my branding options. I can even add an emoji or drop in an image. And what's really nice is this is all editable. So I can go in and change the background. Maybe I want to change the image. I could upload something, or I've got, I don't know, we've got the Artemis launch. It's kind of cool. Do a little bit of space stuff. How about that? Oh my God, I just hit cancel. It's my first day, everyone. Sorry. All right, so back, we'll choose this guy. We'll drag this down. We'll hit apply, not cancel. And then, yeah, I can make that small, medium, or large. And then I can just add media in here. So I can quickly just grab these files, drop them in. Let me do this real quick. I can drop them in side of there, and now they're inside of my shared link. Now, the far right-hand side, security is a huge part of Frame.io. So you want to be able to add a passphrase, an expiration date. For enterprise accounts, you've got the ability to add a watermark, and you've got a slew of other options. But I'm going to show you something kind of cool, though. I can actually open this shared link. And this is kind of what it'll look like for your creative stakeholders. Maybe you want to send it to the director, but you don't need them to be in the account. It's a great way for them to go in, leave those comments and notes. But maybe there's something in here, and we don't want to. Well, how do I get out of this? How did I do this? Oh my! Why is that not? There we go. So maybe I don't want certain videos in there. Well, what's really nice is I can go in, multi-select items, and I can remove those items. But here's what's really fun. I can go back in and I hit refresh. And now I didn't have to change the URL. I didn't have to send out another link. That asset is still in there. The other ones were removed. So now I have a nice, clean view of everything inside of this link, and I didn't have to resend and get more confusion with my client or anyone I'm sending this to. One other thing I wanted to show you before I let you go, because we are getting close to the end of my time here, is the ability to do media intelligence, because that tool is available inside of Premiere Pro. So it's a really great way to search for media. Once you import media into Premiere and also into Frame.io, what it'll do is it'll actually allow you to search for those items, and not just based on metadata, but actually look at information that you're actually typing in. So if you're, let's say I want to type in bottle, it'll actually read the information within my file and know what is a bottle, where it stands inside of the sequence. Maybe I just want somebody running. Let's see if that updates, and then it'll show me I've got a little, I made this little video game image. So I've got a little character running, but I've also got just tons of other things that kind of pop in that will update as I change my search settings. So that is media intelligence. But of course, everything makes sense when you're able to round trip this back to your collaborative tools. Again, keeping your editor in context. We go back into the project, and those comments that I just added, let's see what I have one in here, should pop in as a marker, but it did not do it for this demo for some reason. Maybe there's something I didn't do. Maybe it's still importing. Let's see. Let's let it refresh here for a second. Either way, oh, there it goes. Popped in. It didn't do it automatically for me. So yeah, again, any comments that come in they come from a share link or from anywhere inside of Frame.io, they're able to circle back inside of Premiere. But again, Frame.io is not just limited to your video assets. This is for every single type of creative asset that you have. You can even upload PDF documents, photos, Word documents, anything that you need for your projects, or even if you're just file sharing, Frame.io is an incredibly great tool. And we're continuing to improve on this process as we go along. And NAB is coming up very, very, very soon. We're very excited to show you some new stuff in this space. But I'm going to go ahead and hand it back to Morgan because that is my time. Thank you, everyone. And check out Frame.io.
All right. Thanks so much, John. Great demo. So to recap, the tools shaping some of the biggest stories of our time are arguably some of the most accessible tools to your team today. We also learned that great storytelling takes robust tools that are purpose-built for teams to keep your team focused on story and the creative. And finally, we learned that the edit room looks a lot different these days, meaning there's more focus than ever on keeping creative teams connected throughout the creative process. All right, so we always like to leave a little bit of time at the end here for some open Q&A and discussion. But before we did that, I know we took a poll earlier. Earlier, the audience told us where you feel your workflow feels the most friction. Just to give you a little recap of what those poll results were, about 59% of you said that post-production and editing sees the most friction, with about 35% responding with review and approval, as well as delivery. Hopefully, throughout these little demo vignettes, you've learned a few new tips and tricks here that will help make your life a little bit easier. But rest assured, our work here is never, ever done. We're committed to delivering the best-in-class assistive features as workflow continues to evolve here in time. So let's move on to a couple questions. It does look like we have some questions in the chat around what kind of online trainings and tutorials we have available. Looks like we have some folks wanting to learn more about After Effects, but I know we got a ton of other resources available there as well. I want to pitch this over to you, Carl. You've been closest to this. Carl is famous on Adobe's YouTube channel here. He's conducted a lot of the tutorials himself. Where are some of the best resources for anyone that wants to brush up on skills or learn best practices? We've got a few options, but what would you suggest?
Well, if you're looking for kind of a one-stop shop, adobevideotraining.com, that's adobevideotraining.com, all one word, is kind of a one-stop shop. That is an official Adobe site. And we actually started this with Premiere training a couple of years ago. I did a series that is geared towards people coming from other editorial platforms, kind of getting them up to speed. But there's also some wonderful tutorials and videos that talk about Premiere on just about all levels. In the last 6 months or so, we've added a ton of new resources for Adobe After Effects as well. And we have a number of new trainers that have come on board to really focus on training on After Effects. So whether you're using it for motion graphic design or you're trying to use it for compositing, it's definitely a place to check that out. I know that there are more videos coming because I just wrapped up recording a few of them. So stay tuned in the next few weeks for some additional training at, once again, adobevideotraining.com.
I love it. Thanks, Carl. All right, a couple other questions. Billy, I wanna punt it over to you. How do you personally know when a cut is working before anyone else weighs in? I know this is a nuanced question, but we always love to ask our editors this. How do we know when a cut's working?
The process is basically you have a cut that's, say, this long. This is working, this isn't working, this isn't working, and you're continually kind of trimming, moving things around, putting in another shot, whatever. And then at a certain point, you make one change, and that change can be literally a one frame trim one way or the other, and the whole scene vaporizes. Then you fall into a weird world because you don't want to screw up this. It's working. It's all working. It feels like you're looking through a window and you're watching something happen. So it's that moment that the whole thing vaporizes that I know, don't mess it up, be careful, but you got to move on.
I love that. No, vaporize. I haven't heard that term before. I love it. This next one, I wanna send it over to you, Sean. From your perspective, I know you've been a Frame.io expert for ages at this point. Over all of your time at Frame.io, what is the most common breakdown that you see with creative feedback? And how does Frame.io help to solve some of that? And I know that depending on which teams we're talking to, it can be a number of things, but what do you feel like is the most common across enterprise organizations, creative teams?
Honestly, having a single source of truth, having a place where everything kind of lives. We have so many different ways that we can communicate. There's Slack, there's email, there's text messaging. There's so many different ways to get assets to and from each other, and also a way to communicate. And I hear so many times, editors having a hard time getting notes back from their clients, because the clients will look at the time code and go like, oh, at minute 20, there's this weird thing. And it's like, well, what minute 20, what frame, what moment, what, I don't know what context. So being able to have those kinds of tools to, be able to annotate and have like that direct, exact feedback that's needed. I hear that a ton. And again, having a place for all of your media to kind of be at. I can't tell you how many times people have been looking through emails going, you sent me that link or you sent me that file. I don't know where it is. So being able to just have one place where everyone can kind of just throw stuff into to keep things kind of moving. Honestly, that's kind of the biggest one that pops out for me.
Here, here. I've struggled with that myself personally. Carl, I want to pitch this one back over to you. You've been working hand in hand with a number of filmmakers that have projects in various festivals, but you also work with a lot of our business customers as well, trailer houses, marketing agencies, brands. Where are you seeing some of the newer capabilities in Premiere making the biggest difference in day-to-day work with the editors you're working with?
Well, definitely something Sean talked about, which is the media intelligence and the ability for people to go in and just simply do a search of all their open projects for something like an orange jacket, or even search on a key phrase. Because the panel, not only does it do the visual search, it does an audio search for sound effects, and then it also leverages the transcripts and can become the one-stop shop for looking at everything. The other newest thing that has just started to hit, and I've seen a couple of places really taking advantage of this, I think viewers' tastes have evolved, and now we're starting to see more and more like motion graphic design where you need to be able to make the text fly in back of somebody. So you need to have that whole capability of cutting somebody out. And some of the new masking features that have just come to market early this year have been the most exciting that I've gotten to show people recently, and they've been showing how they're using it.
Yeah, masking tracking has been like one of the biggest game changers for me personally. I didn't realize how bad I needed it until I started using it every day myself. So
It works
I
so
hear
well.
I know.
Yeah, it does.
It works for a lot more than you think.
Yeah.
I think we got time for one more question. So I want Billy to bring us home here with the elephant in the room. There's been lots of conversations right now around where some of these AI tools, specifically generative AI tools, fit within editorial. For you personally, like, where do you feel you're drawing the line with what you want to use it for, and more importantly, what you don't want to use it for?
It's a very touchy subject, not so much with me, but with the studios, the networks. They are very cautious of it and don't want to tread into that territory. And I'm very cognizant of, I'm not wanting to take employment away from anybody. So, but if those tools in AI give me the ability to help sell the cut, and particularly in areas that can be very labor intensive, and it requires me to spend a huge amount of time to do something, and now it can be done with a keystroke, that's a highly advantageous feature. But I treat it very cautiously. I try to keep it that while doing the cut on this side of the line, I'm fine to use it, but knowing that for the most part, it'll all get replaced on the B side. Once we lock picture and we start finaling, it pretty much largely gets replaced.
Yeah, here, here. We are a company of creatives making tools for creatives. We cannot eliminate the creatives in that process, but I think as far as enhancing the creative and being able to pitch your ideas, we're seeing tons and tons of folks share that same sentiment as well. Well, I do believe that is all the time we have left for today. Thank you so much again to Billy Fox. It's always a pleasure to have you join us for these fireside chats. And thank you to Carl and Sean as well for sharing your knowledge with us. I do want to leave everybody with a couple of these resources up on the screen. We've gone through a lot of training resources as well today, but we've got some really fantastic blogs for you to check out, as well as some other resources. So with that, thank you so much again for your time, and we will see you next time.